Good evening and welcome back to the Pastor Study with Pastor Dan Wessel. If you have been following the news at all from probably anywhere in the world, you're aware the spate of violence has taken place in the United States most recently. Several days ago, one of the more well-known conservative Christian uh, speakers and commentators, activists in the United States, Charlie Kirk, was murdered mid-speech on a university campus. And just several hours ago, as I was listening to the radio in the car, I heard the report that three police officers were killed, several others wounded, trying to serve a warrant in York County, Pennsylvania. The details of that are as yet unknown or yet released, and yet three families already know that their father, their mother, is not coming home. People have told me our world is coming apart. We're losing our ever-loving mind, cultural mind. There's truth to that, and yet it should not be a surprise. Paul, several thousand years ago, 2,000 years ago, writing to his protege Timothy, says this, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Sounds a lot like the times that we're living in today. I certainly don't know that I can stand up and with all surety say that these are the last days. And yet Paul's description of a coming culture certainly does match the one we're living in today. Can it be changed? It can. If we listen to the experts and we follow the science, we find that Solomon's writings in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 certainly stand good stead for us today. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And yet we're turning our children loose with smartphones that far outstrip their ability to self-limit those things that are causing them damage. Certainly, they have free access to pornography and everything else of that nature. The snipping, the bullying, and all that takes place on social media has caused many a child, many a teenager to commit suicide. They weren't guarding their hearts because they did not know how. They'd never been taught, and they were handed a dangerous weapon, if you will. It's much like giving a child a firearm and telling them to go hunting without giving them any hunter safety knowledge or even how to load the firearm or how to shoot it. It's a dangerous tool in that instance. We live in a difficult time. As Christians, we have a responsibility to guard our hearts because the things that we allow in will corrupt it. How do we know that? Paul, writing to the Corinthian church in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, says this, for though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We live in a world where we are presented with competing thoughts, competing ideas. Culture today tells us pornography is okay, premarital sex is okay, sex outside of marriage is okay, and on and on and on. I could spend the rest of tonight and into tomorrow making a list. And yet, as believers, we're called to live differently. Paul is warning Timothy in that passage that perhaps, Timothy, in your lifetime, this is what's going to come about. You have to be prepared to guard yourself. About the same time, Peter is writing to the church. And here's what he says, 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 and 9. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith. What could change our culture? Standing firm in our faith. What could change our culture? Taking all the knowledge out there, the availability of all of the things that our culture makes available and take it captive, obedient to Christ. Is that going to happen? I'm not foolish enough to think that it will. No. Our culture is run amok, at least from a biblical perspective. We go back, we can stretch back to the 1970s, where the idea that the hippie movement put forth was, if it feels good, do it. And that really is almost the mandate of today's culture. I don't know that we have the ability to change that outside of a massive revival, like the Great Awakenings early in our country's history. But what I do know is this: as believers, we do not have to allow it to impact us. As believers, we don't have to allow it to, if I could say this, infect us. The enemy is seeking to destroy. And if we don't follow Solomon's idea and guard our hearts from the things that are out there, we'll find ourselves infected with the very virus, if I could put it that way, that's infecting our culture as a whole. Violence every day, school shootings, mass shootings. The issue is not weapons. The issue is the state of people's hearts. And if we can't touch that, uh, the story of Cain and Abel teaches us that rocks are sufficient to kill people. Great Britain has extremely strict gun laws, but they have a very real knife problem, I'm told, in the city of London, with multiple attacks with edged weapons, just as dangerous in close quarters as a handgun or a rifle is from a distance. Again, it all depends on what's in a person's heart. Let me warn you today. Solomon says, as God's people, we are to guard our hearts, because everything that we do flows from what we put in our hearts. Paul tells us to guard our minds, and that's really what Solomon is saying. He's not saying guard this beating organ in the center of our chest. He's talking about guard that from where your choices, your decisions, and emotions flow. Paul tells us that's in the brain, that's in the mind, and he says that's where we fight the battles. And Peter warns us, it is a battle, and there is one out to get us as believers. What we do with that knowledge is our choice. I'll leave you with that, and I look forward to seeing you next week back in the Pastor Study.